Okay, this penultimate talk is going to be done by me and Scott. And we're going to look at the impact of emerging technology on critical national infrastructure.
Did you just jump across too? Oh no, that's fine. Okay, so this is essentially the agenda we're going to run through. We're going to talk a little bit about, firstly, who we are, a quick introduction into what critical infrastructure is, for those who don't know, look at digitalisation, some of the dangers and the threat landscape for C&I as well, and some of the key things, and also some of the potential solutions. So that's who we are.
Okay, so digitalisation is what's causing the problem. Everybody now is trying to get online, whether IoT devices being put into your baby monitors, your fridge, your light bulb, everything that moves is being digitalised. But in the rush to digitalise, very few people are thinking about security.
So before we jump in, just to make sure everyone's on the same page here as to what critical infrastructure is, it is what makes a country work, really. Your energy supplies, your finances, your people, your food, your water, your chemical supplies, your energy, everything like that that would cause an awful lot of chaos if it broke.
And if you want to think about the impact or how digitalisation can be used against the country, we need to go no further than Stuxnet, which was an interesting proof of concept case.
Yeah, okay, so Stuxnet, for those that don't know, essentially was probably the first nation-state sanctioned attack that took place. Although it's not absolutely conclusive, it was the Americans, the Israelis, and possibly the Brits' help, and they basically got the intelligence about the Iranian nuclear program and how in the Natanz they were enriching uranium using centrifuges there. So the Americans and Israelis worked with Siemens Nixdorf, who produced the centrifuges, got a whole load of them, stood them up in the desert, and then got some really good software engineers there to start finding bugs and holes in it. They wrote code that would cause the centrifuges to spin up an awful lot faster, but at the same time report back to all the monitoring systems that everything was normal. Then an Israeli operative was able to bring that code inside Natanz and get it into the systems there, and they caused an awful lot of damage to all of their centrifuges there and set their nuclear program back a little bit.
Russia has understood the importance of digitalisation, and by 2030 they're now moving to ensure that they are supreme sovereign of their digital space. They're actually, when we talk about security, it's layered security. They're actually creating an internet that's interlocked security so that they're looking to make their geographical internet safe so that they can take it offline if they want to, which means they can militarize it, and that's their objective. And it's not just Russia. China and India understands the importance of a geographical sovereign internet.
So now looking onto some of the actual C&I threat landscape and emergence technologies here. We'll start with SCADA, or SCADA, however you want to pronounce it, security control and data acquisition. Anywhere where you've got power generation, energy generation, large transformers, things like that, you'll find SCADA, you'll find ICS systems in there and other operational tech. Now, these are all pretty much running on serial protocols that were very common in the 90s, generally in the clear. Now, for cost-saving exercises, a lot of these are being connected to the internet for remote access. These are very outdated technologies, but they are part of critical infrastructure of lots of companies. They're susceptible to side channel attacks. They've got very large attack surfaces on there. Yeah.
In fact, digitalisation of our electric meters, we were all pushed. It was going to do an awful lot of good. The first generation of electric meters that went into our homes, they had a feature that if you failed to pay your electric bill, they could cut you off from central office. But if they wanted to reconnect you, they had to go to your home. Now, you didn't need to be a rocket science to work out in the middle of a winter, if you cut all the electric meters off, you could freeze us out. And that could be an attack which doesn't do any harm to the infrastructure, but you could kill thousands. And that's because of digitalisation without security. Then you have 5G. 5G is absolutely brilliant. It's faster. It carries a greater data set. We all love it. But it has some problems. With 5G, they've moved away from your old, when I went into it, you had old switching hardware with regards to networks. Now we have software switching, which has opened up the landscape where you can be attacked. You also have a problem with trustworthiness in 5G, an argument that's being put forward by America and the UK, because one of the biggest players in 5G is a company that the Americans and the British think shouldn't be in our network. But they're there. And BT have been told, take them out. BT has said, we have no other technology. It will put us back decades. So the agreement has been to kick it into long grass and wait until 2027 to fix the problem. That's 3 years before Russia is completely contained and put its whole internet into a container so it can cut it off, attack. We're still arguing about our switches and our routers and whether they're safe or not.
So moving on to one of the other emerging technologies here, artificial intelligence, or probably more specifically the subset of that, machine learning. Now, it's great. It's become ubiquitous. It's in everything from our Siri agents, the decisions on whether or not you get a loan, whether you get insurance. It's in driverless cars. It's being used to make decisions on lots and lots of things. But one of the areas that particularly concerns me here is the lethal autonomous weapons. Now, these can act as basically, we're familiar with drones flying around the air. You've got autonomous vehicles on land, tanks that are almost autonomous. You've got submarines that are autonomous. And now we've got most of those powered by some form of machine learning in there. Now with machine learning has got lots and lots of vulnerabilities in it in terms of adversarial machine learning and whether or not you're poisoning training data sets, things like that. But what specifically jumped out was in the back in 2020, if you could just jump back to that. Sorry. Yeah, back in 2020 there was the Cargo 2 drone, and that actually attacked. It was filled with explosive and attacked a group of people in Libya and killed them, and it was based totally on its own decision-making process. This wasn't like the first generation of drones where they had a remote operator back flying them somewhere else. And this is the first step. Russian Federation here is also actively developing artificial intelligence in tanks, in drones, in missiles, and other robots, and the US Navy as well is developing a complete fleet of ghost ships in there. And like all these things, they have the potential to be hacked, and that's concerning. And yeah, satellites and space. This is another sort of potentially big area of concern, especially now that we've got the commercialization of space from lots of the world's billionaires. Things like a complete coverage of the planet now with satellites for internet. Absolutely brilliant that you can get fast internet anywhere in the world. But at the same time, there's some big risks there. There's actually going into space, you've got issues around compromise of these satellite systems, compromise of our GPS systems that we're all dependent upon. It's fairly trivial to spoof GPS systems and do replay attacks against GPS and things like that. You've also got other concerns when you look at space, as people like Elon are planning to develop asteroid mining. You've got to have latency tolerance networks. How do you handle when you can't uplink for 6 hours, 8 hours? And what happens when someone compromises those.
And then you've got my favourite subject, IoT. Brilliant stuff. They're everywhere. They're in light bulbs, baby monitors, I've said that. But IoT has a problem. The small size of the hardware means it has limited memory, limited hardware capacity, and limited power. IoT devices are now also being recruited via botnet masters to actually attack the internet. The biggest takedown of the internet was a distributed DOS attack, which was instigated by the plug and play aspect of IoT devices. People didn't know that their smart speakers were actually attacking the internet. And the Mariah attack, which is what it was a proof of concept. You can now buy that and choose who you want to attack. But IoT devices have been rolled out by companies who are interested in giving us a device and less interested in the security. Although I've heard there are things happening in that ecosystem, but up to this point, IoT devices have been a very easy way to get in and attack.
Which then brings me on to one of my other favourite areas, quantum computing and its impact on cryptography. There is one area that's already quite effective, that's quantum key exchange, and that's been proven to work over distance. But probably more of a concern for us in looking at cryptography is what quantum computers can do, and there's two specific algorithms there that affect it. Now, most of our asymmetric cryptography, public-private key cryptography, is based on hard maths problems. So you've got things like factorization of large numbers, discrete logarithm algorithms, and elliptic curves. Now, Shor's algorithm here basically breaks that, because rather than just having your usual bits, you've got qubits. You can do multiple things all at the same time, as that works. And that basically means that our standard asymmetric cryptography that we use for everything these days will be broken when the quantum computers reach the level large enough to handle those key sizes. And they're growing year on year rapidly. You've constantly got Google and IBM competing for who's got the fastest quantum computer at the moment. That's going to cause a big problem. We've also got Grover's algorithm, which affects our symmetric keys there. That effectively halves the key size, the normal key size. So that's less of a problem to solve, because you can just double your key size to get around that. Now, NIST has been running a number of competitions over the last few years to look at post-quantum cryptography there. Most of those are based around lattice cryptography. So some of the early contenders were announced probably a month or two ago, and one of them has just hit the news because it was breached by an old Xenon single processor computer, and it broke it in an hour. So it might be quantum computer proof, but it's not proof against an old Xenon computer. So that puts us in a tricky situation, particularly if you're in a situation where you need to keep something encrypted for at least 7 to 10 years minimum, 15 years minimum. And at that timescale, most of the experts in the field estimate that the quantum computers will be suitable to break that. So that causes us some problems.
Now, we're not behind Russia, China, India because we don't have the intellectual capacity. We kind of maybe lack an overarching approach to security when it comes to the new generation security. But we definitely have some solutions. NATO took a look at this problem last year, and they identified in a 36-page report that there were solutions, been produced in the West to these problems if we only had an overarching approach. I read a report on a lightweight multi-factor attribute-based authorization approach. I know it's not sexy, but it's brilliant because the person who wrote that understood an important thing. Attribute-based authorization gets around the distribution consensus problem that you have in networks with IoT devices, and with cryptocurrencies, you have a problem with how do you know when something's been agreed simultaneously by all the miners in all the places at the same time? And this has been proven to work, and it would work in a SCADA system. Layered encryption using hash, but you're hashing the security together as opposed to hashing it and saying this is correct. You're hashing each bit of security together. And so if you break that, the hash changed, and therefore you know. You've got the balanced authentication mechanism, which I worked on, which goes right back. I had to look at math going back 40 years to find a way of getting cryptocurrency to work as it should do, by allowing people in different parts of a network to agree and to agree simultaneously. Sounds like it couldn't happen, but it can. In our universities, we're coming up with a solution. But what we need is to work together, industry, university, and professions. We need to come together. Or by 2030, it is possible that Russia, China, and India will be sovereign over the internet. Any questions?
Avoid that by answering those questions before. At the moment, what they're looking for, or what Russia
At the moment, what Russia's looking for is geographic sovereignty. So what they're looking for is to genuinely be able to disconnect from the internet. So if they kicked off, say, a cyber attack, they can disconnect and then it can corrupt all our sphere ecosystem. Apart from them, then they can reconnect. And China and India aren't too far behind. But because we don't have an overarching approach to the way we do things, lots of industries, because of the way our system is, work on separate things, and they may come together when it gets really bad and solve the problem. But because we work in small sort of groups like that, we're finding it difficult to deal with that. But I've heard that there is standardization coming along. I'm hoping it deals with the problem that's out there.
Is sovereignty the right answer? Because surely that's just another privatization security, which we never fails. So privatization security is the classic, like the old castles in Scotland with the big wall around them. If you get into the juicy bit on the inside, then you can just kill everybody. Or like old corporate firewalls, firewalls are really fine. Once you get to the soft, in the mushy bit. So is it what we're talking about? So I think you're saying that Russia, China, and India, by having sovereignty over their geographical advantage. I'm just questioning that.
They may, yeah. It depends how they do it, and I've strangely enough not had sight on the approach they're making. And it depends, yeah. You could just put a massive moat around it, and then once you're over that, you're in. But this is something they've been looking at since the 1990s. So I'm interested to see, are they doing a bolt-on system, or is it interconnected, literally a dome around? I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what we're doing to some extent. I've heard there's things about, things are happening, but they are aiming to militarize the internet. That's their ultimate aim. It started with DARPANET and ARPANET, yeah. But we've had a little bit of fun with it, and we like it as fun. But they're taking it back. So I need to take a look at what they're doing, and I would love to take a look at what they're doing.
But I'm just questioning about, is it the right thing to do? Should we actually, even as a country, even think about that, or do we just protect the assets in that internet, connect the internet, just be stronger in...
If we could protect each asset individually, and we could get each corporate organisation to play ball and to connect and to implement the right rules, even though we don't have eyes on what they're doing, we just take their word for it, then yeah, that would work but history has told me a lot of corporate organizations tell us one thing, but do another. And I think we need to work out, what do we want in the future for our internet? What do we want? Especially in light of their attempt to militarize it. And we've got to decide what approach we want to take. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll grab the mic. Okay. I just want to add to that. If you think back, for those of you who can remember, to 88, when Robert T. Morris launched the internet worm, and that spread throughout the whole global internet at the time and basically caused it to grind to halt. If you had a kill switch which you could cut off the entire network for your country and deal with that and know that's coming in and patch it, or if you look in the early noughties when Slammer went through everything, and that went through some of these supposed air-gapped networks as well. It hit a number of those and caused loads and loads of chaos. If you can cut that off, it gives you an opportunity to deal with it. If you're a country that is actually deciding to make an offensive attack out there, and you cut off first before you do it, and we've seen that countries plan ahead. You just look at how they cut the gas reserves back in Germany prior to Gazprom. Okay, go for it.
Just recently, there's been a pandemic.
Has there?
And one way to not get affected is to isolate. So we've known that isolation, all it does is delays the problem. It doesn't actually solve the problem. So is parameterization a security feature which we should be promoting?
Do you know, that is such a deep. I say yay, you say nay.
I think the kill switch could be nationwide. It could be individual. It could be based on your home. But what we need to do is get our act together because we're falling behind, and we need to take a stance and go for it. In my mind, I'm going to go on a rant. In my mind, I remember when interest rates were managed by politicians. That was such fun. And then they gave it to the Bank of England. I think cybersecurity is so important that it should be taken away from government, and it should be put like interest rate in a body that's actually concerned with the nation to protect our nation. I think we should take an approach. But hey, it's a rant. Sorry, Lizzie.
Yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. I'm fascinated that you have brought this is political. This is a geopolitical question. It's about what sort of political system we want to live in. And I think it's a really, really important conversation, but I think that question about where if you had a kill switch, you had that capability, where it might go, whose interests are represented, what does that mean for a democratic country? Yep. These are really, I think it's a hugely important topic, but I think you can't have, I think we can have this conversation without acknowledging the political dimensions there.
And I want to take it out of the politicians, because scientists, I don't know. I'm asking you lot are so wise. Tell me.
It's a political conversation, whether it's in the hands of, it is a political question. Who doesn't have access, who gets to decide?
Yeah, but anyway, sorry.
But if you turn gets a hand on that social something if I would, and I want to be paid for it.
If you take it away from the politicians and you give it like a new NCSC or a GCHQ, whatever organisation you put it in, right? Because you go back in history with NIST, influenced by the NSA. So you're going to get a new organisation from the UK. Is it going to have something for this from government via the back door or GCHQ, NCSC? Because Dr. Levy and one of the other senior people come back around knocking on the door, three-way encryption, let's listen to all the secret messages.
I think it's a conversation we have to have as a nation. I think it's a conversation we have to have. We may just say status quo, like you said. That may not be the route, but we do need to have the conversation because other people are making moves. And we need to acknowledge that change needs to come. But do I have the solution? No. I'm a bit of an optimist. I think if we get really nice people into a committee and we all...
Okay. We've probably got time for maybe one more question, I think, because we're now starting to overrun a bit. So, anyone else? Go for it. Your hand got up.
But I think when you look at it like Russia, China, and to a degree, India, you have a nation state that's deciding something, and these are not people that we necessarily agree with in this room. Heading towards that way only means that it doesn't matter if you body, it becomes politicized. I mean, it will just become that way. Since we are economic type nation, incentivizing like corporates to do the right thing is probably likely to be more successful in this country, because basically you get people in the wallet. That's the way to make things happen. I think if someone had a button, the problem is that button can then be misused and it becomes censorship, and it becomes all the things that China is, and all these sorts of things, which is not what we signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to go down the route of a totalitarian, but the carrot and stick, you know, the old-fashioned carrot and stick, we're going to take lots of money off you if we found that you've someone's breached your security, is also not proving very helpful. There is a middle ground, and if we don't start talking about the middle ground, that council of nice people who are very intelligent come together and start talking about where that middle ground is. We have to have that conversation, I think, as a nation, because the internet can be something that can be, you know, a really good thing, but it can soon become a weapon that can be used against us, and we need to find a way of defending ourselves, and that means difficult questions.
Yeah. Encryption is the best example. Every couple of years, we think of the children and we have back on encryption. So if we had something like this, can we trust ourselves? Can we trust our nation? Probably not. Can we trust ourselves?
Okay. I think we're going to have to pick this up in the after party and come back to it then. Yes. So, so thank you very much.